And I think Joby is, he's walking in the door as we speak. So we will have our Pecos Valley Bassmasters fishing update. I knew if we had kith and kin food and coffee that Joby would be here.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm very good. Thank you.
Good, good. Let's see. You didn't have a fishing tournament this past weekend?
No, we did not. There was last weekend at Brantley. Had the 2-team tournaments on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But we do have another 2 tournaments this month coming this weekend. We're going to be back at Ute Lake. It's an individual tournament. Saturday will be one day tournament, and then Sunday a one-day tournament. And for all of our membership out there, if you didn't get my text or you hadn't seen the emails, I sent out email on that this morning, as well as a text reminder and the invoices. So for everybody out there that's listening, if you want to fish, you're not currently a member, you can still join. We've got a bunch of tournaments left this year for 2022, so plenty more time to fish. And if you are a member and you didn't get any of my stuff, text me, because you should have. You should have gotten a text. You should have gotten a couple of emails.
Yeah.
But our tournaments are going to be at Ute Lake. We fished there last month in May in conjunction with the New Mexico Bass Nation, and a couple of our members asked after that weekend, what do you think about possibly moving it for June, since we're going back? Because when we wrote the schedule, that New Mexico Bass Nation tournament, the dates had been picked, but they hadn't picked the lake yet. So we just had on our schedule to be determined on that weekend for fishing in conjunction with the state. And then, of course, we had Ute in June. And so anyway, they ended up determining Ute Lake, and so we had several fish it. And then a couple of our members said, hey, what do you think about maybe voting on a different lake for June, since we were up there in May? So we did that, and it was tight voting. We ended up having, seemed like we had 17 vote, and it ended up being a one vote pushed it to Ute Lake again. So a lot of fish were caught there. There's some big fish in the lake, but the chances to catch them aren't as good as maybe fishing one of the Texas lakes. And I think that's where some of our membership was hoping we could vote to go somewhere in Texas. And we put 3 lakes down to choose from, and like I said, had a tight vote. It ended up being Ute by one vote. They had a lot of fish caught, and so the fish are biting. The lakes in New Mexico are low. Of course, we're getting some rain up north recently, and of course, Artesia, we got some rain last night. But I think the rains will help the lakes. But the fishing was pretty good at Ute last month, so I'm hoping just as good this month.
According to this, the New Mexico State Parks Division, Ute Lake State Park, elevation 3,776.190. Surface acres 5,373, or is that 5 million? I bet that's 5 million.
Well, probably 5,000.
5,373.000.
Yeah.
Volume, acre feet, is 135,536. The boating conditions are listed as good.
Yeah.
And that was updated June 6th. So it's been a couple weeks since it was updated. But they're saying boating conditions are good at Ute Lake State Park. So does that kind of tie with fishing conditions? Do fishing conditions and boating conditions tend to, if the boating conditions are good, the fishing is good, or are they tied together at all?
Well, I mean, when they say boating condition is good, I'm making an assumption that there's not as many hazards. Maybe the lake has risen some, which does go to bass fishing. I mean, obviously we got to be careful with hazards and not hit our boat or hit the motor, but not necessarily, except for that. They don't tie together. I think though. And I haven't looked at any fishing reports. I'm basing everything off of last month and I didn't go, but when our club was fishing in conjunction with New Mexico Bass Nation, and the fishing was pretty good. Everybody caught fish. Seemed like everybody caught limits. They were small limits. There was no real big fish caught. I mean, there might have been a couple, but Ute Lake is typically you catch a lot of smallmouth bass, and they're on the smaller side. There's some nice ones in there, obviously, but harder to find, I think, harder to catch, and there's just not as many as there are in other lakes. But I always have a great time at Ute because it seems like I just catch fish all day, and it's fun to catch fish. Now, it's better when you're catching keepers and big fish, but But I always have a pretty good time when fishing Ute Lake because of that. And it's a pretty lake, beautiful lake. It's got canyons and a lot of rocks. But the lake was way down last month. I mean, it was even lower, I think, last month than it was last year when we fished there. But like I said, hopefully it's catching some water. Maybe they've got the dam shut, and maybe some of those rains up north are going into Ute Lake.
Seems like we are getting a little bit of rain. I mean, the monsoonal season, the governor told us that the monsoon season started.
Oh, she did?
And it did. I mean, we're seeing some spotty rains across New Mexico.
I'm glad she flipped the switch with her power.
She has it. And sorry about that. But it does, for example, like in a lake like Brantley Lake.
Yeah.
We start to see these scattered showers. Some of the water that falls does wind its way into the river, which eventually winds into a lake like Brantley Lake. How does that generally affect the fishing? Is it just generally if you get the water level up, that's a good thing? And
well, I think initially, if the state, whoever runs the dam, I guess it's the state environment department or whatever. If they shut the dam off, they close it, water's not going downstream, which I don't think they do that till the fall. But let's say they did that, and then we've got a lot of water coming down from the mountains, all the various draws. You have Seven Rivers, the Felix, Cottonwood, I don't know, lots of draw, Eagle draw. Water does make its way down to the Pecos, and from up north as well, further north. And then that water runs right down into the lake, and so it starts to fill up. Then it doesn't necessarily change fishing to better immediately or anything like that. It can, but not necessarily. I think that if it flooded, let's say we had a big flood and it raised 20 feet, which that'd have to be a lot of water, but
yeah, it
really raised. I think 2 or 3 days probably before the fish would kind of reacclimate and reposition. I think it would take a little bit of time. And I've been fishing a long time, but unfortunately I'm just not an expert at it. I should be, but I don't spend enough time learning. But
yeah,
we got a lot of folks in our club that are experts, and they could answer that question better. But the more water generally, the better, because you have less likelihood to run into things, and you got more water to fish. Because as it goes up, of course it's because Brantley is really low. I think it dropped 20 feet last month, and that's a lot. I mean, 20 feet is a lot of water surface area that really shrunk down.
Yeah.
And the deepest I saw was just I think I saw 14 feet a couple weeks or last weekend when we were there fishing. So
yeah,
that's not very deep.
No, it isn't. I wonder if they've updated their stuff on there. Like I said, the Ute Lake was
in June,
couple of weeks ago, so it wasn't quite the same as here. Did you get your boat fixed?
Have not worked on it yet. I'm hoping it's just the prop, the hub in there. I'm hoping that's all it is, and that's still expensive because props are really expensive.
Yeah.
But I may keep my beat up prop and just get the
Now that's
internals.
Funny. Boating conditions. Here it is. Park alerts. Boating conditions. All right. Brantley Lake State Park. This was last updated also on June 6th.
That may be. They may do that once a month and first week of each month. I don't know.
Yeah. It says surface area is 1,321 acres. And that was compared to
a fifth of Ute.
That's
and Ute's
right.
way down.
And then their volume of acre feet is 13,279.
Yeah, so a lot less than Ute Lake. Ute's a nice sized lake. Even when it's down, there's still a lot of water to fish. You got 5,000 acres worth of water.
Yeah, whereas it's about 1,300 acre feet surface down here at Brantley Lake, and that was on June 6th.
Which I know it's gone down since then.
Wow, that's just.
Well, they're irrigating. Every year this happens. And Brantley's fishing really well. I mean, we caught a lot of fish, as everybody knows from seeing our results last week when I was in. But my hope is that it continues to fish well, because people local get more interested in fishing when they're the only, we have the beach in Carlsbad to fish out of, but it's just such a smaller body of water. It's basically just the river there and not a real lot of space. And we fished it some. But Brantley's really our only local body of water that you can go bass fishing on with boats. And so every summer it just drains, and but if the fish are biting, there's still water, and so people get interested in it, and then sometimes they'll join our club because they catch some fish and they like it and it's fun, and and then our club grows a little bit. I mean, a few years ago, we saw a big boom before COVID. We had a lot of water that year. I don't remember what year it was, but the lake was pretty full even when they were draining it. And so the lake conditions were really good, and the fish were just, man, I can't remember what year that was. That may have been 6 or 7 years ago, but you could throw a bare hook and catch a bass. It was just, I mean, people that had no clue were catching a lot of fish, you know, and so, and I say that, I just mean that they had never really been bass fishing, but they would throw anything and they would catch one. Yeah. And so, that really got a lot of interest. Our club grew exponentially those couple of years when Brantley was fishing really well. You know, our club really boomed up there, but it's everywhere else we fish, you got to drive several hours. And so that's usually a hindrance for a bass club like ours. We're down here with just not a lot of water around us, but good year so far this year for Pecos Valley Bassmasters. We're over 30 members, and I sent that text and email and the invoices out today, and I'm hoping 10, 12 boats go. I don't have any idea ever, but hopeful that we get a good turnout.
Well, that'd be great. And if you want to sign up or join the club or whatever, you should have. If you're already a member, you should have gotten the email.
Yes, and the invoice and a text from me.
And a text from Joby.
Yeah.
And if not, and you'd like to go, and you're not doing anything this weekend, and you want to jump in, as they say, just go to pvbm.club.
Yes.
And fill out your registration form and
email that in. I did have a guy that I do know. I know him by name. I don't know if I'd recognize him, but he fishes New Mexico Bass Nation. And when I was the Secretary Treasurer year before last, I guess now, I kind of got to know a lot of the membership, at least by their names, and shook their hands. And anyway, I had a New Mexico Bass Nation member go to our. Let's see, he did it through our Facebook page. He messaged me through our Facebook page and said, hey, I would love to join you guys and fish this weekend. Is that possible, or how does all that work? So I know that people see us out there on Facebook and on our website, and that's a good thing. And I told him what he needed to do to join, or how he could fish. And so might have some new members even this week from up north. I think he lives in Albuquerque, or I think maybe Rio Rancho. Anyway, he lives up there. But ask if he could fish it and how would he go about doing it. So we'll see. May have some new members this week. We've had new members recently. We had last week, and I talked about it, but in our Brantley tournaments, I think we had 5 guys that had never fished with us fishing those Brantley tournaments. So that was cool to see. And one of them texted me this morning when he just responded, said, I got the stuff. Thanks for sending it. And I texted him back, and he's one of the new ones, and texted him back, said, are you guys going to try to make it up? And he said, well, like to, but we may not be able to. Soccer tournaments. Carlsbad, and I guess they probably got kids maybe playing soccer. Yeah. So I don't know if those guys are going or not, but he said he wants to, and he's going to see, but we'll see.
Well, the thing about summer, it's there's a lot of activities that are going on, and people have to weigh all of that. And,
Yep.
Fuel costs might also be a factor too.
Fuel costs. What's going on with fuel? So
I
just take out loans each time I go to Walmart. I just borrow more money.
Just out of curiosity, how much fuel in a tank on a boat? Typical bass boat.
20 to 40 gallons.
20 to 40 gallons.
Yeah, I think smaller boats may be down in that 20-gallon range, but to fill one up, it's expensive.
It's expensive,
just like for everybody else.
I understand that. So how much fuel will you use on a typical boating weekend?
Well, it depends on the lake. Depends on how big
go where you go, and
the
then
lake.
You sit.
Yeah, you sit normally, but it depends on the size of the lake. You go to a great big lake and you do a lot of running, well, you may use a whole tank.
Wow.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
When we went to Possum Kingdom, we've gone there several times. That's a big lake. When we go to Amstead, that's a big lake. Big lake.
Yeah.
And if you run a lot, if you're going from spot to spot, or if you go, I mean, I know, because like at Amstead, you can drive 40 miles on your boat.
Yeah.
But, and so some guys do that. They go way up the Pecos River. And so I think 40, maybe it's not quite that far, but you can go a long ways, and you can go into Mexico and fish quite a ways into Mexico. So on deals like that, if you're running a lot, and what I mean by running is going from spot to spot, you may find a pattern. It may be main lake points, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
that you're catching fish on. So you go to a main lake point, you fish it out, you go to the next one, you go to and so a lot of guys do that. They'll run, and yeah, you can use a lot of fuel.
You've fished at Ute Lake before, right?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So is that a long run to get to where the fish
Well,
might be, or it can be?
It can be. I mean, it's not like going to Amstead or one of those big Texas lakes, Possum Kingdom, but it's still a pretty good sized lake. You can run around on it. I don't think I've ever used a full tank of gas, even though I have done a lot of moving at Ute.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're right. You got to factor that in. You factor in your gas to go in your vehicle. You factor in the gas in the boat.
Yeah.
You got to factor in the cost of eating and staying somewhere, and it's kind of an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Before I started bass fishing, some 15 or 18 years ago, I had started golfing some. I never golfed until I got into college. I never picked up a golf club until I was in college. And I really liked it. And I used to think, man, this is kind of an expensive hobby. You pay your greens fees, pay for your cart, you got to have some golf balls, you got to have, it's kind of an expensive hobby.
You got to have good
And then I
clubs
started fishing, and I realized that's an expensive hobby.
But if you really, really enjoy it, it's
but it is a hobby, and I enjoy it. I'm obviously, I guess anybody that's ever won money is considered a pro, but so anybody that wins, you're a pro angler. But, just fishing our local club is a lot of fun, and you do have a chance to win a small pot of money. And so I'm pretty competitive by nature, and so it's just, for me, it's a lot of fun to try to beat the other guys and gals.
So pvbm.club is where to go, and you can get signed up, and you can get all that good information. I was going to ask you, do you know, if I can find it here, if it'll come up on the screen. Sometimes it loads right up, and sometimes it takes forever to load up there, and then there it is. Okay. Do you know, where did it go? Do you know Jim and Kathy Moore?
Well, I know a Jim Moore.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same Jim Moore.
1110 Camino.
Yeah, that's Mr. Moore. He worked for the schools. He was a principal. He's my neighbor. He lives down the same street I do.
Yard of the Week.
They won the Yard of the Week. Nice. They have a very, very pretty yard.
Yeah.
They do.
So I figured you would know.
I do.
Them.
They won it last week, or when is it done?
They are the current Yard of the Week folks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
yeah, I know them.
They
just live down across, just not very far down from me